What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Rebel Jiujitsu podcast, the realest jiu-jitsu podcast in the world. We might not be the best, it might not be the best production quality, but it is so real. Listen to those driving sound effects. It sounds like I'm driving to work, and I am driving to work. It's a beautiful Boulder City. The sun is shining, 70 degrees. Daylight savings time was yesterday, so even more tired than normal. But whatever. No one wants to hear your excuses. It's time to get to work. So today's episode is about learning resources. I asked myself, what is the point of the Rebel Jiu-Jitsu podcast? Why do it? What's the point? I don't want to be a famous podcaster. I don't want to be a jiu-jitsu celebrity. I'm happy being a good coach to my students and a great dad to my kids and a great husband to my wife. What's the point of this podcast? But the point of the podcast is simple. It's a learning resource. I want to spread jiu-jitsu by teaching jiu-jitsu. I want to teach people jiu-jitsu at my academy, Rebel Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Follow us on Instagram. But I also want to teach jiu-jitsu to everyone I can. How can I make the biggest impact to help jiu-jitsu grow, help the art and the sport grow internationally? And I think that is by becoming a learning resource. There's a lot of great learning resources in jiu-jitsu. There's podcasts, there's YouTube channels, and when somebody really knowledgeable about jiu-jitsu tells you tips about jiu-jitsu or tells you about their journey to become a champion, it gives you a lot of insight, okay? You have to go to class to get better at jiu-jitsu. You have to train to get better at jiu-jitsu. But you can also improve your jiu-jitsu just by studying, just by watching matches, but even more specific, by utilizing learning resources. So I just want to recommend a couple that I use, and you can try them out yourself, see what you like the best, and go from there. So everyone follows jiu-jitsu pages on Instagram, and that's good. You'll see some highlights and clips. You'll see kind of what's going on in the sport that week, that month, the big highlights. But to really try to learn and get a little bit better at a certain subject, there's a few different jiu-jitsu resources, learning resources that I like to use. So number one is podcasts. When I'm mopping and vacuuming every day for 2.5 hours, I want to utilize that time in a productive way. Now, it's already productive just by cleaning, right? That's awesome. But I want to try to get smarter while I'm cleaning. So what I do is listen to some jiu-jitsu podcasts. One I listen to is the BJJ Fanatics podcast with Ryan Ford. That is one of my top jiu-jitsu resources. He is always interviewing world champions, and they're talking about their journey in jiu-jitsu, and they have a lot of good knowledge to share with us. Again, they're world champions in jiu-jitsu. They reached the pinnacle of the entire sport, and they're talking for an hour about how they train, how they eat, their process of becoming champion, their process of starting jiu-jitsu. You get a lot of insight. Besides world champions, he also just has great coaches on there. I listened to a good interview with Paul Schreiner, good interview with Charlie Vinge. Lots of great insight to not just become a better jiu-jitsu athlete, but for me, become a better jiu-jitsu coach. So the BJJ Fanatics podcast is a free resource. I recommend you guys subscribe and check it out. Another good free resource would be, on YouTube, this guy is the original, Budo Jake. Budo Jake, he was before Flow Grappling. He's an OG. He basically filmed Worlds and like the other big IBJJF tournaments, and then they would come out on DVD, and he like manufactured the DVDs and started making kind of like some of his own shows. One of those shows was called Rolled Up, and it's basically Flow Grappling Fix My Game. They basically stole this idea from Budo Jake back in the day. He was the original. And you gotta credit the originals, guys. You know what I mean? The production value is high, but it's older. So, you know, the quality of, it's not 4K or whatever, but it's still awesome. Check out YouTube, Budo Jake, Rolled Up. So good. Flow Grappling. Now let's get into the paid ones. So on YouTube, there's so much good stuff still, just for free. Marcelo Garcia, anything he has on YouTube, watch him rolling for hours on YouTube. Huge influence. When I started jiu-jitsu, he was like the biggest thing. When I was white belt, blue belt, 2010, 11 to 2015, 2016, 17, Marcelo Garcia is still like the GOAT. On YouTube, lots of some good Kron Gracie matches, some good classic matches on YouTube. Andrew Wiltsey on YouTube is great. A lot of professional insight for free. YouTube is obviously a learning resource. It's just about picking out good instructors. Anything from a world champion. If it's free on YouTube, hey, might as well watch it. That's kind of how I select who I'm listening to, though, is somebody with some kind of credentials. A world champion, a coach at a championship academy, like who's coaching champions, but somebody with credentials. There's so much out there. I don't want to spend an hour watching like BS martial arts videos, right? That would be silly. So, some more resources. Everyone knows about Flow Grappling, but UFC Fight Pass is getting in the game too. So UFC Fight Pass, they're doing some big like no-gi tournaments. I think that is a great learning resource. Again, just watching the matches and watching like the cutting edge of jiu-jitsu. Since jiu-jitsu changes every year, if you're a grown-up taking jiu-jitsu class, you want to stay on the cutting edge and know what's going on. You don't want to just say, oh, I don't know that crazy Berimbolo stuff for 10 years. Like, it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? The sport is going to evolve with or without you. If you're doing the sport, it's great to find moves you like, but you should also know the new positions that come out. They're all just variations. What's old is new. So it's never anything that crazy. But jiu-jitsu is a sport of knowledge. The whole point is to learn more jiu-jitsu moves, learn more tools from your professor, and then use those techniques to overcome your opponent. Not just your strength, right? The whole point is to learn jiu-jitsu. Right? So, a couple more learning resources. UFC Fight Pass, Flow Grappling. They're both in the same realm of paid live events, previous events. Fight Pass has no-gi stuff. They're going to do the ADCC Worlds on Fight Pass. Flow Grappling has the IBJJF Worlds. So gi and no-gi, that'll cover all your bases. If you get both of those, it'll cover all your bases. One that I like, there's a lot like this, but there's one that is better than all the rest, called AOJ Plus. So I trained at AOJ. I'm a big fan of Art of Jiu-Jitsu and the Mendez brothers, and they finally came out with an online program, an online app with training videos, sparring videos, original content, little kind of like UFC embedded documentary kind of films, instructionals, all that good stuff on one app called AOJ Plus. So most major teams have like an app nowadays. Atos, BJJ On Demand, I'm sure Gracie Baja's got some kind of app. And it's cool that AOJ has one that's just so high level, really high quality content. So it's easy to watch. It's easy to find techniques you want to drill. And it's nice to look at. Very high quality. That's the biggest thing I think we'll see shift in the next couple years is the quality of the content. BJJ Fanatics videos, a lot of them is just like an iPhone on a tripod, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just want to learn the technique, I understand. But when you're watching videos for hours on end, it is nicer to see a crisper, higher quality video with more angles and like better way to show the technique. So AOJ Plus is like the main one I use in terms of like an instructional kind of like paid instructional service. I think it's $25 a month. Well worth it. If you're obsessed with jiu-jitsu and thinking about it all day, every day, and you follow all these Instagram accounts and you sign up for tournaments, tell your wife, oh, I'm going to do Masters Worlds. I'm going to cut some weight. I'm going to do Masters Worlds. Then spend $20 and learn some jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? You'll spend it on Starbucks. You'll spend it wherever, at the gas station, Red Bulls, C4s. Learn some jiu-jitsu, okay? Learning resources. A couple more. These are online resources that I listed so far, right? So this is, again, the ones I use. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify for the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, BJJ Fanatics. My podcast, I hope, can be a learning resource for you guys. Rebel Jiujitsu podcast, follow us on Instagram. Like, subscribe, 5 stars. AOJ Plus, great paid instructional service. BJJ Fanatics is a site where you download instructionals. It's great. They have thousands of instructionals, so it depends on the instructor. I would recommend, again, choosing someone who you like their jiu-jitsu, you want to learn their kind of techniques, and that's more than enough reason to basically buy like a virtual private from that person. Maybe it's $100, maybe it's $250. Even if it's $250, it's probably 8 hours, 6 hours. That's 6 privates. So this is well worth it. You'll learn a lot. And it's something that you can come back to as you get better at jiu-jitsu too, and probably learn even more from that instructional. So BJJ Fanatics in general, great learning resource. Now, of course, the ultimate learning resource is just going to be your academy where you're training. So wherever you're training, you need to invest that time in yourself. You need to invest in your jiu-jitsu. That means taking group classes, sticking to a schedule. Consistency is so much more important than going like with how your body feels. Oh, I'm kind of tired. I'm just going to let my body rest. Oh man, I'm feeling good. I'm just going to go crazy today and not train again for 2 more weeks. Oh, I'm kind of tired. I'm going to let my body rest. If you go like that, guys, you just won't learn enough. Again, jiu-jitsu is a game of knowledge. It's human chess. Maybe not at first when you're still learning, right? It's a little spazzy, I know, but eventually it becomes human chess. You need to have your sequences, you need to have your techniques sharp. So the ultimate learning resource, your academy where you're training. Every place I've ever trained, I've utilized private lessons. I got privates with Tynan when I trained with Tynan Dalpra at AOJ. I got privates from my coach before that, Artine, at Total LA, Total Jiu-Jitsu, the Armenian gangster Artine. I got privates from my professor, Mike, my first professor in New Jersey, where I got my blue belt. May rest in peace, Mike Merkulik. So it's not something where you need to take privates every single day or not even every week. Depends what your goals are, right? If you're getting ready for a tournament and you want to cram, I would recommend getting a couple privates, getting at least pointed in the right direction where then you could drill what you're learning in the private outside of the private spend your hours on the mat as wisely as you can. Somebody with more experience than you, whether it's the assistant coach, purple belt, brown belt, your black belt professor, whoever it is, they have a higher perspective of jiu-jitsu. So you might be thinking, oh man, I just gotta work on my arm bar, but you don't even know how to escape the mount. So they can give you that better perspective and keep like pointing your ship in the right direction so much more at a private lesson than they can when they have 40 people in their class. You could probably learn so much from their class. It's fine to be in a 40-person group class. You have a bunch of great training partners around your level that you get to roll hard with. So those group classes are awesome. But if you really want to take your jiu-jitsu to the next level, utilize private lessons. Even like these instructionals are basically virtual privates, right? And that got bigger during COVID. That's something instructors I know still do. I've taken one once with a friend of mine, and it was like from an ADCC champion, and it was good. We definitely learned from it. A little difficult doing it through the FaceTime and like, oh no, put your hand here, put your hand there, but still honestly a great deal and worth it. Just taking jiu-jitsu lessons, period, private, group lesson, that's the biggest resource. Having a coach watch you do the move and correct your technique is the biggest resource. Because when you watch an instructional and then you try it, maybe you try it with your training partner, it's also blue belt or white belt, they can't see all the mistakes you're making. When you practice it, you want to practice it correct. It'll still take time to add to your repertoire, but it will be sharp and it'll be ready to work like against a resisting opponent, right? Not just in the drilling. So hopefully I gave you guys some good learning resources. Again, I like to think about jiu-jitsu as a real knowledge-based sport. The more you know, the better you are. But you kind of have to like dig for that knowledge on the mat. Just the hours of experience, it's like more of a wisdom that you're acquiring than necessarily memorizing moves. So get those hours in. The mat is the ultimate teacher. The mat is the ultimate learning resource. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you on the mats. It's spring break. It's going to be a busy week with the kids and the grown-ups. Come train.